Hello, my name is Lisa Wallace. I'm with Avalara. I want to thank you for joining today's webinar, Beginner's Guide to Everything Sales Tax. This is brought to you by Avalara and our partner, Paladin. I want to cover a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session will be recorded, and you will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording and the corresponding slides. This is in case you want to review on your own, or if you want to share with your coworkers, you will have the capability to do that. We'll be taking Q&A at the end of the session. At any time during the presentation, you may log a question into the Q&A button at the bottom of the console. And at the end, Chad and Charles will be sure to get those addressed for you. So, and now I'd like to hand it over to Charles, who will introduce Chad. Charles?
Hey folks, welcome. Thank you for attending today. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a very busy schedule. This is just an ongoing Paladin University presentation and webinar that we conduct every couple of weeks or so. Today we are honored and privileged to have with us one of our key partners, which is Avalara. And I'll be introducing the speaker for this momentarily. But let me first start with myself. So most of you know me. I've been with the company about 12 years. My current title is Chief Experience Officer, which means I just advocate for customers and prospects. As Lisa had mentioned, we're going to be recording this. So if you have interruptions at the checkout or somewhere else, customers come first. You can always download this or rewatch it again in the next 24 hours. It should be posted. So you'll be able to get that. If you have questions, like Lisa said, just add them into the chat screen and we'll address those at the end. And again, welcome everybody. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Chad here. So as you can tell from Chad's smile, he just learned that he doesn't have to wear the mask anymore. That's how I smile when I know I don't have to wear a mask. So Chad's a sales executive with Avalara, and he is the one that's responsible for maintaining the partnership with Paladin. He's been at the company at Avalara for 6 years, and he assists businesses as they navigate the complex world of sales and use tax. Also provides guidance to our mutual customers to understanding Avalara's products and helping them automate their sales tax compliant process. He's had more than 9 years of customer service experience in technology industry with the small and medium-sized companies, as well as Fortune 500 companies. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, Chad. Take it away. I appreciate your time as well.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to learn a little bit more about Avalara. So who is Avalara? We've been around since 2014. We started to really tackle the problem of sales tax for businesses. We now have up to 30,000 active customers. One of our huge competitive advantages is our pre-built integrations. I'd say that number is probably closer to 800 today, obviously including Paladin in that mix. So regardless of what your business is set up today, we hope to have an integration that's pre-built for you, ready to use and use our services. So really want to take a few minutes just to why tax compliance matters, and then obviously how Avalara and Paladin can help together, and then we'll save a few minutes at the end for Q&A. So part of Avalara's commitment to our customers and our partners, we want to educate you on sales tax compliance. We obviously want to help you automate that. So let's take a look at sales tax compliance today and why it's important to your business. To really get down to the bottom of it, it's really about money. Sales tax makes up almost 50% of total state revenue. So you can see that the states are looking for ways to increase revenues and collections, which includes changing laws, tighten nexus obligations, putting pressure on businesses in the form of increased audits. Economic nexus, which we'll talk about briefly, is one of the new ways that they're really doing this. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to getting additional money for the states. Compliance is not optional. State revenue officials are increasing pressure on businesses because sales tax are a large part of their state revenues. Billions of dollars in state tax revenues going uncollected. So the states just continue to implement new ways to get that money. So you can see a lot of rapid growth in triggers that have changed the tax challenges that you may have today. So really it comes down to, and if you're not familiar with the term nexus, but nexus is really the connection that establishes a business obligation to collect and remit tax. So when you've created nexus, that's when you collect sales tax in a certain state. If you don't have nexus, and we'll get into a little bit more of how that is determined, but if you don't have nexus, you don't have an ability. So a lot of you today may only be collecting in the state you're located in, which is perfectly correct. But there's a lot of things to look at moving forward and to kind of keep an eye on. So you can see in the box a lot of nexus creating activities today. You should be familiar with the majority of those, but it's really more of that physical presence is kind of that traditional form. Now, what really changed was back in the summer of 2018, there was a giant Supreme Court decision. This completely changed the landscape of sales tax for everyone and created economic nexus. Basically, what came out of that South Dakota versus Wayfair decision was that now on top of that physical location, whether you have a building, a warehouse, an employee in a certain state and have nexus, you also can create it by selling into a state with a certain amount of dollar amount or transactional amount. The last I checked, Missouri and Florida are kind of the two holdout states. We have 43, obviously only 45 states have sales tax today, so 43 have enforced some type of economic nexus. And physical, as mentioned, physical presence is still there. You still have to keep an eye on that to see where you have property, where do you have employees, are you visiting states and doing sales in certain states? But really kind of focusing in on both is really important. So you want to track the economic nexus, which our AvaTax software can do, which we'll speak to briefly. But you also want to make sure you have a good understanding of nexus, because that's really at the end of the day going to determine when and where you need to collect and remit sales tax into which states. So how Avalara and Paladin can help. Avalara has three main pillars of our business and three main product offerings. And we can certainly speak to these if you guys have questions on each one. Our main service is AvaTax. It's right in the middle. This connects with Paladin or any other ERP e-commerce if you have multiple. But this is provide your sales tax calculation. AvaTax is a cloud-based software, as you can see by the orange cloud. So we're able to update any kind of sales tax laws or rate boundary changes in real time. And it communicates back and forth within a split second to provide an accurate, down to a rooftop level sales tax calculation. We also, on the far right, have our managed returns product. This is exactly what it sounds. We help you file and remit payment to the states on your behalf. So again, if you're in one state, that's probably not too complicated today, but if you're managing returns in, multiple states, I have some customers that 20 or 30 states they need to file returns in each month, then that managed returns filing really comes in handy because it really automates that entire process. We pay the state, we file the return on your behalf and ship it over. You have all of that information in the archive. Third main product is our cert capture. This is a place to store exemption certificates. It communicates with AvaTax to provide an exemption, but not only does it let you store a digital copy of every certificate for your customers, it also lets you manage those. If you need to run reports on certificates that expire in the next 90 days, you can run those type of reports so you can proactively request a new certificate. So a lot of cool features on that if you do have an exemption certificate requirement today. So as mentioned, AvaTax is our main service. That's today what we have the pre-built integration with Paladin. So when you place that order in Paladin, you're going to see a total amount of sales tax, but just know this sub-second challenge that we call it, all of these boxes are checked throughout that sub-second. So we validate the address with the USPS database, check for any sourcing rules, apply the jurisdiction. Again, being that Avalara uses a rooftop geolocation setting, we'll see that if you look at the map on number 3, there can be times where a neighbor could have a completely different tax rate than his other neighbor due to a city line or a county line. So having that rooftop accuracy is very important, where today I'd say most people use zip code based tables that could provide inaccuracies. We look at rules and regulations. Obviously check exemption status, whether it be start capture or other ways to exempt your customers. Product taxability is a big one. If certain states have different product taxability, we use these two jackets for a reason. In the state of New York, if you purchase a clothing article that's over $110, it's taxable. Under 110, it's actually exempt. So you can see the varying product taxability. Is there any sales tax holidays? And then obviously returns back the tax to your system, but also collects that in our AvaTax dashboard for future use, so you can review those. And if you use return filing, we have all that information collected in the AvaTax dashboard today. So the really biggest thing for Avalara is we want to help automate the entire process from start to finish. We know sales tax isn't the most fun topic to discuss. It has a lot of nuances, whether it be the changing from physical location to economic nexus, but we really want to help you automate that entire process. Take that off your plate, keep it all in one place. Accuracy with all the constant changes in laws, real-time calculations, automated systems should get it right every time. We want to make this more efficient. Risk management. If you go through an audit scenario, being able to have access to all of your records in one place and having that centralized data is just so huge for that process. But also customer satisfaction. If your customers are ordering and they have the wrong tax amount, that could lead to customer sat issues on your side. So having that streamlined process, accurate sales tax every time is huge. Business growth, as mentioned, if you're only in one state today, it's probably not too bad. But as you add additional states, having something like AvaTax, once you've set up our system with your Paladin, you can then just click and add additional states as needed. So you don't have to kind of regroup and I guess kind of research a new state. You just really add that new state. Hey, I have Nexus here. Our system knows to start collecting sales tax immediately. And then, again, just that added protection and reassurance with the tax compliance that everything's being done right. You have records of everything. A lot of audits go much smoother if you're able to pull up those records and have accurate information. So going through that's really the biggest piece. We want to keep a very high level overview of everything, of kind of how we can help today. Some really important things, again, with sales tax. Nexus being probably the most important, just knowing where you have that liability and not being caught off guard if a state comes calling and looking for money. So with that being said, I wanted to keep it very high level. We're going to open it up to some Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Charles. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, please log them into the Q&A button down in the console. We have a couple that have come in, so I can get started here. When you hit an economic threshold, are you automatically registered in the state?
Great question. You're not automatically registered. That's what I like to refer to it as a business decision for you. So we can help track that. We have a free economic nexus tool that I could send out to you guys. And also if you have AvaTax, we track that. Our heat map on the homepage of AvaTax will actually provide you the status. So if you get within 80% of a threshold, we light it up in yellow to let you know, hey, you're within 80%, or if you've exceeded it, it lights up in orange, meaning you have exceeded it. That does not mean you're automatically in that state. At that point, like I said, it comes down to a business decision for you. Do you want to register in that state? If it's for example, I would say that a lot of the minimum thresholds are about $100,000 into a state. So if you sold $101,000 and maybe it was a one-time customer, I personally don't know if I would register in that state, but then again, that's that business decision, because once you're registered, you've now registered your company in that state. So that's something that you would need to continue to monitor in the future. So you're not automatically registered, to answer the question, but you would certainly want to. If you've exceeded it by a large amount, then we would highly suggest you register.
Good information. Here's another question. Our business is physically located in one state, but we deliver product in other states. Do we adjust sales tax based on where the product is delivered? Do out-of-state customers need a tax exemption for both states or just theirs?
So I'm sorry, can you read that first part again?
Oh, sure. Our business is physically located in one state, but we deliver product in other states. Do we adjust sales tax based on where the product is delivered?
Yeah, so that would be going to depending on where that order is being placed. And again, some states have origin destination, but for the most part, it is going where that order is being shipped to. So that would be, again, tracking versus the economic nexus. If you're shipping to a state and you don't have a physical presence in that state, then you may not have nexus unless you've crossed that threshold. So that would be one to keep an eye on. How many times are you shipping in that state? If you come close to that threshold, in that case, you may want to look at registering. And as far as the exemption certificate, that again is something that varies by state. Most customers should have an exemption certificate for each state. Sometimes they have a multi-jurisdictional certificate that may cover multiple, but that really can vary depending on what type of certificate they send over. And then even some states, such as Ohio, they have kind of what they call kind of a home rule certificate rule. So if you have a certificate for your home state, Ohio will actually accept that as well. So you don't have to actually go to the state of Ohio to get a new one. They'll just accept the one. But again, that really does vary state to state.
I have another one that has come in. How bad is it to wait for them to find me? That's if we may have Nexus but do not register. Ooh, that's scary.
That's the $1 million question right there. It's really, it comes down to risk tolerance. It's a tough question to ask because I have certain customers that they're right along that. Let them come find me, and that's some businesses do that. But just knowing the cost of a lot of audits, I think on average, it could be $50,000-$60,000. Then it's typically a little bit better to be compliant up front. We obviously prefer the fully compliant option, but we do know there's a lot of customers that make that business decision. So I don't have a great answer for you there, but it's really just, I guess, your level of risk tolerance.
Are marketplace sales included in economic nexus threshold calculations?
Marketplace transactions included in economic nexus. I believe they would, but depending on the marketplace. So we've noticed recently a lot of customers that maybe use an Amazon or an eBay or those type. Some of them may already collect the sales tax and remit it for your orders. In that case, you may still need to include it on any returns for total sales. But in those cases, they may have already handled that for you. So it really depends on the marketplace. And that may be one we'd want to have a one-off conversation just to kind of check in on what specific marketplaces. But I believe it's total sales into that state. So if it's not being remitted by the marketplace, it could potentially count towards economic nexus.
Great. If anyone else has a question, we have a couple more minutes. If we don't have any other questions, we can end this and give you some time back. Why don't we move? Let's see. I don't see any other questions coming in. Oh, wait, I think there's one that's come in. What is the fee for Avatax?
Another great question. It is depending on the business. So we have a transaction pricing model. We basically have different buckets of transactions that you can purchase. We look at roughly completed invoices in the states you have nexus. So whether it be 1 or 2 states or however many states you're located in, we only look at those transactions. So we subtract out the non-nexus transactions. So that's going to be an annual number. All of our contracts are annual. So it really depends on how many transactions you have. We have tiers that start as low as 250. I would say ballpark, maybe $1,000 for the year on that. That's probably the lowest tier, but we have transaction tiers that go all the way up to 5 million and everything you could think of in between. So we would want to really dig in and just understand your nexus. So if you were interested, happy to have that conversation. Typically only takes 20, 30 minutes just to discuss, just review your nexus and that amount of transactions. So that would be definitely the biggest piece to getting an accurate pricing model would be amount of transactions in nexus states.
Great. Here's another one. Is the contract for Avalara separate from the Paladin contract, or can they be bundled?
It is separate, is my understanding. And Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it would still be the Avalara piece is on Avalara paperwork.
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, it is separate.
So with that said, I think if there are any other specific questions like that, we can move on to showing. We're
Yeah.
going to thank you all for, if you have some more questions, especially specific to contracts and pricing and so forth, Chad's information is here. Again, this will be emailed to you tomorrow. We will share the recording link as well as the deck itself. And I want to thank Paladin for being such a great partner. Thanks everyone for attending, and look for more little snippets on tax compliance moving forward with Paladin. Have a great day.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Thank you, Chad. Bye-bye.
Thanks.